Hey everybody, welcome back to Retro Modding News. This was a really sad week this week. It was the week that Russia invaded Ukraine. I've chosen not to monetize this video so I could take a couple of minutes to talk about the situation. There are a couple of retro mod developers that live in Ukraine, specifically Krix and Sergey. Krix, if you didn't know, is the developer of the EverDrive. The EverDrive is a series of ROM carts for a bunch of different systems: NES, Sega Genesis, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, there's a ton of them. Krix is a big influence to anybody who is in this retro space. I don't want to post any of Krix's personal tweets, but it sounds like so far they're doing okay. But obviously, if that situation changes, I'll let everyone know. The other developer from the Ukraine is Sergey, otherwise known as SRG320. They are the developer of the Super Nintendo Mr. Core, as well as the upcoming Sega Saturn Mr. Core. Again, I'm not going to post any personal tweets, but it sounds like they're doing okay right now. I'm not going to talk anymore about the Ukraine situation. Obviously, I'm very saddened that this happened, and I'm really thankful to see all of the support from the retro community on Twitter. It's just really amazing when a big situation like this happens, everybody kind of coming together. If you'd like to donate to a cause that's trying to help the Ukraine situation, Voltar posted this link to an NPR article on Twitter. It's just basically a bunch of organizations like UNICEF, Doctors Without Borders, just a bunch of organizations that are prepared to help the Ukraine. If you'd like to donate any money, I would recommend to donate to one of these organizations. It seems kind of silly to segue into anything else, but let's go over some retro stories this week. First, let's talk about this interesting adapter from Consoles Unleashed. This is a Sega Master System version 2 FM sound adapter. Tim Worthington has created a FM sound module. Basically, I think there was some additional sound functionality that the Sega Master System was supposed to have that you could add to an original Sega Master System using its expansion slot. However, the version 2 Sega Master System did away with that expansion slot. This Consoles Unleashed adapter adds back that expansion slot functionality, as well as allows you to use this FM sound adapter. I don't really know much about the Sega Master System. I didn't even know that there was a version 2 of it, but this seems like an interesting mod if you have an SMS2 and you want to add some new functionality to it. Humble Bazooka has released this JAGAIOA adapter. Basically, this is an external RGB mod for the Atari Jaguar that allows you to use Sega Genesis style RGB cables as well as composite or S-video cables to get additional video outputs on an Atari Jaguar. Because it was designed to be used with Sega Genesis style RGB cables, there's actually an RGB amp embedded inside of it. The Genesis cables are expecting a certain voltage level coming out of the system, so basically the amp inside of this adapter boosts it to the levels that the cables are expecting. This is a pretty cool solution if you have an Atari Jaguar and you don't want to solder anything. This is just plug and play if you have all the cables, and you can get RGB out of the Atari Jaguar. Next is the USB 4 VC, which is a USB kind of converter for retro computers. This is an awesome picture here. It looks like you can use all sorts of modern controllers and modern keyboards and mice on old retro computers. Essentially, it's a Raspberry Pi here that has these daughter boards that support different protocols for different types of computers. They just have IBM PC as well as this Apple desktop bus, which supports Apple 2GS all the way to Power Mac G3. It's still in Kickstarter now, so if you want one of these things, you can join the Kickstarter here. ManCloud posted about this Neo Geo HDMI Mod PCB that he's been working on. I didn't really know about this project until he posted about this, and this project is actually an older project. It's from 2015, but it's a digital to digital HDMI mod for the Neo Geo that uses an FPGA from 7 years ago. That's like crazy. There's not a lot of information in the GitHub for the actual base project, and I'm assuming this ManCloud board is still in progress. So I'll be following this project, and maybe we'll have an alternative for the Neo Geo to have HDMI output from it. Next is this GameCube Swiss memory card from Castlemania Games. Now, don't get your hopes up. This is not like an SD card adapter for the GameCube. It's basically a GameCube memory card that has some kind of an exploit and a baked-in version of Swiss. It requires using a Wind Waker disc to boot into Swiss. So while it is a pretty interesting idea and relatively cheap for this small one here, it does require that you have a disk drive to boot into it. Anyways, interesting memory card if you're interested in using Swiss and you already have Wind Waker and you have a functional disk drive for your GameCube. Next, let's talk about this issue that Modsville found with the new GDEMU clones. It sounds like the disk change button doesn't work on at least the one that he bought. The original post has some pictures of some bodge wires here, but if you scroll down even further, there's an even simpler bodge that restores the reset button functionality. Shout out to Spicer Labworks for posting a picture of theirs. Actually, they had that bodge from the factory, so it's interesting that they were able to catch it from the factory and send one out. Anyways, you'll have to bridge these 2 points using some wire if you have one of the newer 5.2 GDEMU clones. Next, let's talk about this tweet from Togamet2, who posted that Iser Addis, who is the creator of the Nesticle NES emulator, is working on a new NES emulator called Metal NES. I don't know much about this project, but if you go to the GitHub here, it sounds like this is a transistor level NES emulator. Well, they call it an NES simulation. Someone who's smarter than me can probably explain this way better. It sounds like this is a more accurate way to software emulate an NES. I'd be really interested in the differences at a high level. Obviously, there's a big technical difference on the underneath. What the difference between this might be versus Mister. I'm sure we're going to be hearing more about this emulator in the future. Last but not least, we have some interesting Terraonion news. Terraonion has actually purchased the SNES core from Sergey, and they mentioned in this tweet here that they're working on a SNES ROM card. Terraonion already has a couple of other ROM cards, such as the Mega SD, as well as the Neo Geo SD, I think. So I'll be interested to see what they come out with to compete with the Super Nintendo EverDrive, as well as the, what's it called now? For the SD to SNES, FX Pack Pro. I'll be interested to see what they come out with as an alternative to those products. That's it for this week. If you want to suggest a news story to me, follow me on Twitter or join the Discord. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.